Good afternoon. Hello, Catherine. This is all working marvellously. Good to see you.
Great to see you too, Chris. I'm very happy technology is in our favour so far.
So am I.
That's
All very good. And really, really delighted to have the chance to kick off this podcast relay with you. So if I knew then what I know now as the new podcast, the start of a relay. So I'm really looking forward to finding out who's going to be here next week, as well as really interested to find out where the topic of if I knew then what I know now is going to bring up in the conversation that we have as well. So it's going to be sort of levels of excitement, hopefully, as we go through the conversations. So,
you and me both. You and me both.
Excellent, very good. So just I started thinking about this as an opportunity to kind of, talk to various people and just pick their brain about the power of learning and perspective and sort of experience and all those things. I've always really liked to quote from an incredibly successful basketball coach in the collegiate levels in America called John Wooden. He said, it's what you learn after you think you know it all that really counts. Which in one way is really powerful, and you kind of go, okay, yeah. So, once you think you've got it and then a penny drops, what do you do with that? And I was wondering if we could call it that, but it's got me thinking about, it could be more than that. It's more than about learning. There's so many different perspectives on this, and I'm going to be fascinated to find out how people take the statement and where it takes them. But before we get on with that, just a quick intro from you in terms of what's going on for you at the moment. Dame Katherine Grainger, Chair of UK Sport, Chancellor of Oxford Brookes University, multiple medalled Olympic athlete. What's going on for you at the moment, Katherine, in the middle of lockdown and everything that we're doing?
Well, probably like most people, a lot's happening and not very much is happening at the same time. So I'm clearly locked down. I'm spending more time at home than I think I've ever spent in my whole life. I have whatever now, 8 weeks now or something, slept in my own bed consecutively, and I've never had that for years. And yet, I have to say, the if you told me 8 weeks ago I'd be spending my whole life in sort of my house and my garden and getting out once a day, I'd say I'd never cope with that. But it's amazing how you can make things work. And I probably spent the first couple of weeks being very productive and getting loads done, and like a lot of people, making huge lists of all the things I would accomplish in the next 3-4 weeks. And now 8 weeks have passed, and I thought, oh, that list is still looking very familiar and very long. So I've definitely gone through stages of feeling I can sort everything in my world, and then realistically, maybe I'm just going to sit in front of the TV for a while and relax. But it's my work at UK Sports very, very busy. And it's I have to say, it's really impressive how the world of high performance sport, I mean, UK sport is mainly Olympics and Paralympics, but all the sort of high performing sort of sports world have really come together to try and find answers for this and try and find a way through it, and as much as it's affecting everyone. So it's I mean, it's phenomenal times we are living through, but I think among that I'm finding enough sanity to stay happy and yeah, not actually enjoying it, but I'm doing okay with it, I have to say.
Yeah. Well, and interesting, you sort of say pace has changed, similar place for a while. So, and also I thought with this topic that, there's a bit more perspective for people at the moment in a number of ways as well. So I thought, why not help a few people go a little bit deeper into that perspective and ask this sort of introspective question and see where it goes. So, so I'm really curious to find out, if you knew then what you know now, what does that mean to you? Is there a then we're going to talk about that you've particularly got in mind?
Yes, and I'm doing a hesitant yes because I think it's quite a sprawling thing. So you first mentioned this idea a little while ago, and I thought, what a brilliant idea! And it's really interesting to reflect. If I was doing that, what would I say? When would I choose? And not maybe it's because of lockdown. I don't know if I've gone down sort of my own rabbit hole of memories and thoughts, but there's a sense of actually I could choose any point in my life and think, actually, if I knew then what I knew now, things might be a little bit different. And that's, making decisions back at school when when you really don't know much. And I certainly didn't know myself particularly well. And I probably didn't have the confidence or being comfortable with myself to sort of make some decisions that I would have done if I'd known now. Same at university. If I'd known now, I'd probably do things slightly differently. And then I went through my whole kind of rowing career and was like, good grief, every year I'd probably, in a way, I could talk, you could just throw me a year and I'd be able to talk about it in sort of reflective mode of, I feel different now. Because I think for all of us, and I think now's a good time, we do have a little bit more time to reflect a bit. And I am a very different person than I was 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years ago. And I should be, because all the experiences I've had between now and then have changed me in some way, and I've learned from them. And I'm a big believer in constant learning in everything we do. So I really, to be honest, went from, this is a brilliant idea, Chris, I'd love to do it, from I actually hate you, quite frankly, because I'm now slightly agonizing over, what period of life I would reflect on most. So it's not an easy answer, but I have, and it's probably because it's time that most people ask me about, to be honest, going back to around 2008.
Right, okay. Yeah.
So I was, I was about halfway through my career, actually. I thought then it was near the end, and a lot of people thought it'd be near the end, but I extended it longer than many people thought wise. But I, I suppose there's two elements to it. One is the leading into, it was the Beijing Olympics for me, it was my third Olympic Games. I was in a very successful crew, and we very much believed we could win the one result we'd never won, and that was to win the Olympic gold. And reflecting now, there's a things now that I'd probably do, especially very, very close to that final race, I would do differently now.
Okay.
And then also the sort of aftermath, possibly even more relevant, the sort of aftermath. I would have been able to deal with that better, I think, if I knew myself, I knew the world now as I know it now.
Yeah. Yeah, and so context-wise as well, part of a very successful crew, world champions for the 3 previous years going into 2008. Pretty good last season going in. I think you were beaten once in that season, but also then beat the crew that had beaten you in the build-up as well. So there was still the kind of ongoing progress, I guess, towards Beijing, and third Olympics for you as well. So kind of a couple of silvers under your belt already. So that was feeling pretty good, I guess, in terms of momentum. So where were the thoughts starting to take you then, in terms of if I knew then what I know now, what's the first bit of forensic analysis you sort of get into?
Yeah, I think, like you said, it was my third Games. So I was becoming a bit more experienced at this gig, and it was the sort of, the lead up to that was the first time I sort of felt in much more of a sort of leadership role within the crew as well, because my first Games, I was lovely, kind of naive, new to the whole thing, and surrounded by incredible, successful people. And then even my second Games, I had been successful by then, but I still felt, between my coach and Kathy I was rowing with, that they were older and wiser in some way, and I sort of felt that was their role more. And leading into 2008, I was the most experienced, and I was older, and in theory should be wiser. And I found it a real privilege. I really, really embraced that extra. I think it does bring extra pressure, having that sense of responsibility. And I loved it, and I wouldn't have changed that at all. But I think I had underestimated, as we got closer and closer to the Games, just the sort of intensity and the pressure and expectation all of us would be experiencing. And it came from, the best possible place. It came from the place that we wanted this so much. We wanted this for ourselves. We wanted it for our team. We wanted it for all the incredible support we have around us. We wanted it for part of Team GB. You're then representing it. We wanted it for the nation. You take on these higher and higher and bigger levels of responsibility without anyone giving them to you. No one was telling us this was important, but that's kind of what we took on. And I probably hadn't kind of appreciated how that might start affecting us individually and also collectively in sort of mentally, but also physical ways, and how it might affect how we would ultimately perform.
Yeah, no, really, really clear. And and I think there was, certainly my recollection, kind of having been relatively close to that journey as well, that they're pretty good communication. There was lots of sort of good habits that have been built on over the previous 3 years that we're looking to kind of keep in place as well. So it interests me as well, just hearing you start to reflect on this, about that kind of the build-up of pressure and some of the things that, okay, if you knew then what you know now, were there any particular points? Was it sort of landing in China? Was it the first outing at the course in Chengyi? Was there anything particular there that you think, actually, if I knew that, I'd have done that there?
Yeah, I think what we didn't sort of predict, we stayed in a hotel near the course, but there was a lot of, I don't know if it was fair or not, there was slight paranoia about, we'd sort of been told things like, be careful with your mobile phone, be careful with your rooms. There was a sense that it was the first time I've experienced it, that we were being monitored in some way, and now whether that was from a competitive vantage point, no one was sure, or whether that was just the sort of higher levels of security and protection you can feel at the Olympics, but also you put that into a Chinese perspective, it's quite a different sort of monitored situation. So there was this sort of different world we'd come into that I hadn't sort of expected, and that brought a different edge to it. And suddenly the kind of, you kind of, not that you know what you're going to in those massive events, but you, to some extent, you try and familiarize yourself and make it as, as familiar as you can and as comfortable as you can. But there was elements that felt out of our control and were quite disconcerting in some ways. And then also, and again, it's reflecting. Like I said, I do love the responsibility. I do love the weight of feeling you have other people's, in sports, sort of hopes and dreams to some extent in your hand, and vice versa. And I love that, how that brings a team together, and like anything else I've sort of experienced, and that's a massive privilege to be part of. But I also know I'm at my best when I have humor and, can bring a lightness to it and a fun to it. And I, looking back, I think I really struggled to find that in that environment and in that place and at that time. And again, it's all with the wonders of hindsight. I would do it, I would find, it was hard because it was, it's a very intense time, but I had much more, to some extent, intense times going forward in my career. And I still, when I was at my best, was when I had some able to switch off for humor, or
the contrast and perspective, I guess.
Yeah,
bit of balance as well. Because I certainly recollect a lot of humor a lot of the time, certainly conversations that we've had and crews have had. There's always been a levity to it. But then thinking back, just thinking about how that hotel felt, and were you really kind of chilling out when you're in your rooms because you weren't really, just some of those things that just maybe don't allow you to get down to that level of relaxation and recovery and kind of ease with yourself at a time when you want to be able to get that contrast, I guess, between kind of, huge relaxation and then sort of huge power as well. Was there anything in terms of, what you'd have said to yourself or other people around you in that time then, sort of now, given what you know now, if you'd known that then, would you have acted differently? Would you have done anything different?
Yeah, I think, we were a really close crew, and we were all very united in what we wanted to achieve and really believed in our own abilities and each other's, and that was really important. Did we have, I don't know, it's hard to, if we had gone and won it, wouldn't have thought twice, move on, let's all be happy. It's only because we didn't quite get what we wanted that you can take it apart a little bit more. But did we have conversations addressing things at the time? Possibly not. Did I feel they needed to be addressed? Possibly not. It's, again, this is with looking back. If I was doing it again, I would probably have more conversations asking, does it feel right? And, are we relaxed enough? Are we happy enough? Are we positive enough? I think we were very focused on, can we deliver what we need to? And we were very clear on the sort of goal-focused conversations were really good and really clear and very honest. But did we really tackle the more human side? More personal side. Were we confident enough, if any of us were really uncertain, to be able to say that or share that? And maybe we would have, maybe we could have, but I don't know if we did.
And it's interesting as well, just reflecting on 2009 conversations that we had when you went into the single about kind of, racing with joy and freedom as a novice, and kind of, just totally letting yourself, throw yourself into the racing and see what happens, with a balance of experience, but then kind of youthful naivety in combination. And it's interesting reflecting upon that and kind of going, okay, well, how easy would it have been to have done that, stroking a quad the year before, and kind of go, right, come on, folks, we're in the Olympic final.
I know. And like you said, the year after, when it was almost like I think I was in recovery mode from what felt like a sort of quite major trauma of disappointment. It was easier to then say, do you know what, just go and have fun, doesn't matter, the results don't matter, because they don't. I don't know, could you have done that in an Olympic year when clearly the result did matter? I mean, I think it would have been quite inauthentic to say, guys, let's go enjoy ourselves, it doesn't matter what happens here, because we were that result meant so much to us, and we felt it was a result we really should be able to deliver, and it's hard, and I think I've done it better and worse in my careers.
Mm-hmm.
But how do you when it really works is when you can really focus on the process itself, just the really in that moment of how you're doing it, not what it's getting you to, and if you can somehow switch it so that the outcome is clearly important and clearly was going to matter, whatever we said, but to take away some of that focus, obsession, intensity on that final outcome, could it be more about, how we were doing it in some way?
Yeah. Again, it's interesting looking at, I guess, the final through the lens of the challenge mindset, where we talk about getting control, maximize the confidence, and then be really curious to kind of go and find stuff out, versus the threat mindset of perhaps, you're trying not to lose control. You may be a little bit aware of some of the things that might be denting the confidence a bit, and the goal focus is much more on stuff that you definitely want to achieve and want to deliver, rather than want to find out. Very subtle difference. And you mentioned the kind of the physical sort of impact, I guess, so if knowing now what you knew then, did you feel physically different? Would you have done anything, was the brain and the body connecting in a way that was bringing in a bit of fatigue, or is there any thoughts on that in your reflections?
Yeah, I'll be honest, I haven't watched the race many times.
Yeah.
I have watched it. I don't know, it's like therapy. It's part of, I think I had to go and watch it, and to see what happened, and to see if there was anything that we did right or wrong, and it was an incredible race, and to credit to our opponents, we had brilliant opposition. It wasn't as if we sort of threw it away to anybody, but the sort of the dying moments of that race, it was so tight and it was so close, and it was, you're among this cauldron, these deafening crowds. It is the moment as an athlete you crave to some extent, and you want to deliver your best. And watching it, there was some tension and tightness, and we weren't as efficient as we probably needed to be to win it. But when you've got about, I don't know, seconds to go and you're suddenly slipping into a losing position, how do you suddenly find that instant relaxation that probably gets you a little bit more? But yeah, so yeah, I think physically there was a risk that intensity crept into what we were doing, and therefore you start to become inefficient. And you're trying to be the best in the world. You've got to have everything going for you, and a little bit too much tension, a little bit of tightness can mean suddenly it's not as smooth and as efficient as it needed to be.
Yeah, and certainly, at the rate as you're kind of going up and sort of, sprinting into the finish, and there's you're trying to get 4 of those bodies synchronized absolutely together to get the boat moving. I guess it's, we talk about marginal gains on the plus side, don't we? Yeah. It's just the marginal interference sometimes that just takes it off a little bit. But as you're talking as well, I'm just thinking about, again, 2009, and there's a World Championship final where you just go out and you're winning for the majority of the race. You kind of go, what is going on? And this is a really exciting, Catherine's leading. And then just at the end, you get pipped just at the end in a thrilling, exciting race. And it pretty much mirrors what went the year before, wasn't it? In terms of, but just a very different sensation of a challenge mindset. We'll go and have a go in the single on your own versus slight bit of threat, maybe just in a, you know, the previous year, getting in the way of it. And yeah, just
and you're right. And I had not really thought about they were very similar how they both played out. And the biggest difference was in 2008, there was the expectation we could win and we should win. Was we felt, you know, we could win and we should win and we wanted to win, and it was slightly that obsession with trying to do it. In 2009, there was no expectation. I'd never done that event. I had raced through the season, not been particularly successful in it. Yeah, I mean, there was points where making the final, making the top 6 would be a great result. And when I made the top 6 and got to race the final, I remember having that conversation of, well, now anything goes. I've kind of, you know, made the point of I can make it into this top group, and well, let's just see what happens. And, you know, we've talked before about just any person you could beat at that point was great. And I was sort of almost mentally just picking it off. I can pick off one person, great, and pick off 2. And halfway down the course, I, you know, got into the lead and thought, this is amazing. And I know journalists who were watching it, and they were kind of half interested. It wasn't a great race. It wasn't a big race. It wasn't anything. They didn't expect any sort of GB interest in it. And suddenly people stopped and went, good God, what's she doing? Because it felt free, and it felt, you know, and it was that, and you know, the months that happened, and it was months rather than years, but the months that happened between sort of summer of the Olympics and the World Championships the following year, you know, so much happened. And that's also, you know, sometime I wish I could have known, you know, not how it was all going to end, because, you know, you can't just say, oh, it's going to be fine, but the sort of I suppose that's being good to yourself and being kind to yourself, because it was very, very hard for all of us after Beijing. There was we were disappointed. A lot of people were very aware of our disappointment. It's a very hard thing to deal with and cope with. And, you know, there was so many people just trying to fix it and help. And same with us, you kind of wanted to snap out of it. And it was very hard to, and it took time. And I think if I'd, you know, known then that just actually some of those huge disappointments, there's no right or wrong way to be. There's no quick way to get out of it. It takes time. It takes a lot of love and support around you. It takes, you know, you work through it. And ultimately, I'd still say the kind of the lessons I learned through that period were some of the most powerful lessons that helped me go on and do a lot more. But at that time, I wouldn't have known, and I couldn't have known, and therefore, I you know, put myself and all of us put ourselves through some really dark days of feeling that a result somehow defined us, a feeling that a result was, you know, because we failed in what we wanted to achieve, therefore we were failures. And I still remember horrible day going to obviously post Olympics. There's lots of wonderful times happening, lots of fun and lots going on. And the 4 of us went out to a sort of a really nice big lunch happening in the centre of London, being hosted by the sponsors at the time, and lots of people invited. It was a big celebration because, you know, the rowing team had done very well, and, you know, even our silver medal was still a silver medal. It was still a great success for a lot of people. And on the way in, we met somebody who had been doing a sort of a thing online about, you know, ask questions to the Olympians, and then if this person saw them, then, you know, she's like, I can give you the questions and the Olympians will answer them for you. And it was quite early on. It was, you know, a lot before a lot of the social media we have now, where there's easier access. So we met this woman outside the lunch, and she sort of said, oh, by the way, I've got some questions for you that the public, you know, want to know. And just take your time, answer them, let me know the answers, and I'll email them back, whatever, and I'll put them on this website. And I didn't think anything of it. And she sort of walked away, and we were gathered outside, and I opened it, and the first question was, can you ask the women's quad what it feels like to have wasted 4 years of their lives? And it was in red print for some reason. I still remember, I don't know why it was red print, but it was red print. And it just, you know, those letters just looked at us, and it was horrible because it was exactly what we felt to some extent. Mm-hmm. And, you know, almost the knife was in already, and it was the final twist. And then we had to go into this lunch, which was a great celebration of all these wonderful things about the Olympics. And we were all really hurting, really, really hurting. I remember going to the toilet, still holding this piece of paper. And one of the brilliant producer directors we work with at the BBC, called Sally. She actually came in after, and she said, "Is everything all right? You don't look okay." And I said, "Oh, I'm just, I'm fine. I'm just," and I was sort of waving this sheet of paper, and she said, "What is it?" And I said, "Oh, we've just been asked these questions." And it's just, obviously, I thought I was okay, but it's still so raw. It's still really painful. And she took a look at it, and she just very calmly, but very clearly, who gave this to you? And I said, "Oh, it's, someone out there." And she said, don't take this, don't answer these things. If people want to ask these questions, then ask to almost see them, address it if you want to, but don't, and she was really good at going, "This is inappropriate, this is the wrong way to do it, the wrong how to do it, and if someone's calling themselves journalists because of this, I'll apologize on behalf of journalism." And it kind of really took me to task slightly on, this is not what you need to be dealing with. And I remember about a year later finding that piece of paper again. Mm-hmm. And when I found it, I was much more defiant, and I was much more thinking, wasted 4 years of our lives. We ended up silver medalists. We'd won 3 world titles before that. We were Olympians. We'd become Olympians. We'd made some history, and it wasn't the history we planned to make. But my God, I don't regret any of it. And it certainly wasn't a waste of 4 years of my life.
Yeah.
But it took a while to get to that place, and it took a while to feel okay with it. And that's the thing. If I could do it differently, I would change it much faster. But it felt like we all had to somehow go through that experience to I don't know, grow from it, I suppose.
Yeah. Do you think you do self-compassion better now then, as a result of knowing now some of the stuff, some of the experience? Because it feels like compassion before, in the build-up, would have been an interesting thing to have, and then certainly the compassion and space afterwards. You're just wondering whether that's something that you're concluding here. Actually, the role of being kind to yourself in the right way at the right time is really important, but not necessarily easy.
Yeah, I do, and I think it gave me a lot of empathy. It gave me a lot of when I work with people now, or when I was sort of continuing my career, you kind of, in those depths, you do really understand what people are dealing with, having been through it myself. So it was an amazing learning experience anyway. But yeah, I think I find it much easier, and everyone's different, but I find it much easier to be, compassionate for others and to give that support and help, and when they're struggling. And I think we're not always as good as being kind to ourselves and being generous to ourselves. And I think we're seeing it a bit in lockdown, as we're all, like I said at the beginning, giving ourselves a hard time and not doing more, or being better in some way, or being able to help or something. And actually, just sometimes being and looking after yourself is the most important thing you can do. And just taking time, I think just giving things time and space was really important. And yeah, I do. I remember as well one of the quotes I was using at the time I've used before, and it's one of those quotes that everyone claims to have said it, but I think it came from ancient Greece originally. And it's not just self-compassion, but it's, be kind to everyone, because everyone's fighting their own battle. And I think that's really important, is you never quite know what people are dealing with, including yourself. You never quite know what everyone has going on in their life. So you make assumptions, and you assume people are fine or dealing with things, or the way they behave is because of something you interpret, and it's often very, very different. And I think I got better at understanding myself and also understanding people, and being better and kind about that.
Yeah. And I'm just wondering here, in terms of sort of taking that compassion idea and giving it a little bit of a specific reference back to 2008. So if we're not going to change the result, but we change the experience for you, given what you know now, and anything that you'd sort of want to experience in the build-up, knowing that you were going to get a silver, anything that you'd want to sort of, say to yourself or focus on that would have changed the experience rather than the result?
I don't know, because if I'm honest,
and I know that I'm asking you that as one of the most competitive people I've ever met.
Yeah, why? I mean, if you're saying no, you're going to get the silver, how are you going to speak to yourself? I'd just still be very, very annoyed. Yeah, it's so hard, because I think what you get a lot, and I'm very cautious not to say to other people now, going into these big events, that whether it's Olympics or whether it's anything else big in their life, it's the easiest thing. And people said it to me, and I sometimes say to people, then catch myself, is that it'll be all right, it'll be okay, you'll be okay. Because at the end of the day, you will be okay and it will be all right. Whatever the result, whatever the outcome, whatever happens, there's a sense of it will all be okay. It always is. You know, life is an amazing ability to, I don't know, take you places and give you things you never expected and harder things sometimes than you thought. But you generally, people are so resilient and so resourceful, and we cope and we learn and we grow and we're better for it. So there is that sense of whatever's coming, you'll be okay and it will be okay. But if you're sitting there a week before Beijing going, you know, the silver medal's coming, but you'll be okay, I'd still be like, what? The silver medal? I don't want the silver medal. And that's the competitor in me that would never be okay with the silver medal at that point. But
yeah, it's making me think about, you know, can we get another phrase in there as well? It's you're okay. Because you said, you know, that kind of the result defining you kind of thing. And, you know, there's something in there in terms of, you know, just reconceptualizing that in terms of, you know, whatever the color of the medal, you're still okay. You know, you've still got this body of work. I wonder if there's something in that, if that sort of slightly sort of gets around the competitive bit in a different way for you.
I think, and I still believe in it. You know, I still believe in that. The fact that we take stuff on, the fact that we enter in the first place, the fact we get back into that arena and bloodied and beaten and dusty and all the rest, and you still fight and you still take on challenges. And, you know, I know sort of when I made decisions to continue my career after that, there's a lot of people who had seen the aftermath of Beijing and seen how upsetting it was and seeing how kind of shook my world a bit, and how to find myself, where, you know, in a protective way, saying, do you really want to go on and do it? You know, do you really think it's worth it? Do you think it's worth the risk? Do you really want to go put yourself through that again? And all that. And I think, you know, the win is still the fact that all of us, we get up and we go again, and we get up and we take on the risk. And there is no certainties in sport. There's no certainties in life. But you get yourself involved, you take on the chances, you have, you know, whether deep-seated desires or beliefs or thoughts, or you want to make a difference or something, and we act on them, and it can be across every sector. You're seeing it right now, so many people right now taking things on to make positive difference for themselves or for other people, because I think fundamentally as human beings, that's what we do, that's what we're at our best. And so yeah, so rather than what will the result be or define you by, or what will you be named as, or what the legacy will become, I think it's the act of doing and trying that is far more powerful. Now when I was, you know, a week away from the Olympics and someone had given me that big speech, then I'd have still gone, no, but I still want to win. You know, the perspective had shifted so much to sort of the only thing was that result, and possibly that was why there was so much tension around there. But ultimately, yeah, I do think that the win is the taking on the challenge. That's the win.
Do you think, sort of in hindsight, looking back, if you'd have sort of balanced the difference between, you know, avoiding losing versus wanting to win, you know, anything other than a win, you know, avoid the loss at all costs, was there any difference in there for you thinking about it in the build-up, whereas previously it had been try and get the breakthrough?
Yeah.
Is there anything in that, do you think?
I think we did. I think I did, certainly. I can speak for myself more. I think there was a fear of loss. I think there was a fear of what if we don't? And I couldn't shift that at the time. I couldn't snap out of that. But I think after that, I was much better at the opportunities. You know, my career before that was very much about what could we achieve, or what could we do, or what could we benefit from this, or what could we, you know, the exciting possibility.
Yeah.
Beijing, of the sort of harshest point of my career was probably the what if we can't do it. And then after that, even, you know, going to London and all that London delivered, I only thought once, genuinely in 4 years, I only thought once about what if I get this wrong, what if this doesn't go well, how will I cope with that? And I thought about it once and I didn't think about it again. And and I very consciously managed to swing it more to, you know, what could be gained from this. And also I think for me, and again, it's going back to the taking on the challenge is the thing, my biggest regret was always going to be not, I think and it's individual, everyone's different, but, you know, if I'd if you'd said, well, actually, Beijing is going to end up in a massive disappointment, so you could stay at home instead.
Mm-hmm.
Avoid yourself the pain, avoid yourself the suffering, avoid yourself what felt like, humiliation. Just stay at home and miss out. Then that would still have been worse for me.
Yeah.
It would have been safer and it would have been more comfortable and it would have been possibly less scarred. But there had been part of my brain thinking, you backed out and you backed off. And why don't you just go and find out and deliver what you can and still be proud of that? And I think going on my career forward, it was always about that, this is really a positive choice to get involved and get back in. And this is exciting, what can be done. And that's when you can shift that mindset rather than a fear of, what if it goes wrong to what it could be, then I think it really helps.
Yeah. And actually on the performance room, there's I interviewed Tom Evans at one of our events, and Tom, emergency medicine consultant, coached on the British rowing team for a while as well. Tom recounts a story that he talked to you and sort of said, Katherine, how do you deal with the pressure when you're paddling down to the start line? And he says, you said to him, well, I look at the people on the bank and, and everyone else, and I think, well, I'd rather be here than there, given the choice. I'd actually rather be the person who's got the opportunity to do something than the person who is sort of looking on as well. And I get, that's a great story to tell, but the perspective bit there kind of just comes through from that story as well. I won't stay at home, even though I know, I'd still rather be in there having a go rather than sort of, being a spectator.
Yeah, and I think life's generally about that. I think, again, everyone's different, and God, I would never judge anyone saying, do you know what? Listen to all that. I'd rather stay at home, much happier. I mean, maybe much more sane, much more wise, but I don't know. Ultimately, I think especially as an athlete, your life as an athlete is short. Mine was longer than many, but it's limited, that. So I knew that also a day that I couldn't do it and I couldn't choose to do it. So I would never want to regret not having done it while I could. And that's partly why I went on as long as I did. And even now, there's, you take on roles and put yourself in positions, it'd be more comfortable not to a lot of the time. But actually, I don't know, it feels good to be involved in doing things where you can somehow make a difference or make an impact or do something. And I definitely think I'd rather be a doer than a watcher in most things.
Yeah. So around about March the 21st, when the Olympics was cancelled, did you have the thought, maybe be involved in a different way? Yeah. So some comebacks are definitely better than others for sure. So kind of just thinking about this, if you knew then what you know now, what are you concluding? What's it kind of boiling up to in your head, or sort of points of reflection? Would stuff have changed? Would you have done stuff differently? How are you feeling?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. This is also why I agonized a bit when you asked me originally, because again, it's all with the wonderful benefit of hindsight. There's not many things I would actually change in my life, because ultimately, I feel all the good and the bad and the disappointments and the success and everything make you who you are. It makes me who I am and what I can do today and what I can take on today because of experiences. Everything's an experience ultimately, and it's I guess how you use it or benefit from that. So I wouldn't actually want anything changed anyway. Really, I'd probably still want to change the Beijing result, but most things I wouldn't want to change. But what have I learned now? I think probably not, if it's possible, not to be afraid. Certainly not to be afraid of failure. Not to let it inhibit things, whether it's physically or emotionally, or like I said, in communication. And also to know that everything is survivable, and ultimately everything is useful and everything is beneficial to some extent. Everything will make you better to some extent. I wouldn't wish what we went through those few months on anyone. But in some ways, I was a better person, I was a better athlete because of it. So not to fear, not to fear what might happen or what might not happen, just to.
Yeah, it's an interesting reflection on the the cost of an irrational commitment obsessively to something that you choose to seek to excel in. And that's really interesting to just think about that whole choices that you make and the opportunities to pursue something with such conviction that, as irrational as it may seem from the outside, the meaningfulness that it has to you is so important, and that's why being okay with the choices you make and who you are and how you are is kind of so important as part of that, I guess, as well, isn't it? So
yeah, and there's the one thing I certainly wouldn't change is the irrational conviction is very powerful. I think whatever you take on, whatever you believe, whatever the odds, you have to want to do it. You have to believe in it, and even against the majority of people around you thinking it's not wise or not smart or not a good thing to do. If it's really what you believe in and what you think is possible, then my God, it's worth following that as far as you can go with it, and not, at the end of the day, if it goes well, brilliant. If it doesn't go well, not then agonizing over what people think or what people say, because it's such a cliche, but my God, life is an amazing journey. We're all experiencing quite a different tangential bit than we expected right now.
Yeah.
But I think, as everyone's saying, hopefully we'll all reflect differently having had this experience. And I don't know, to me, that's what it is. Get your convictions, run with them, and learn as you go.
Yeah, and it always makes me reflect upon the absurdity of sort of the same colour medal and the very different stories that go alongside them. So, 4 silvers, 1 gold, very different stories for each of them. Even though lots of people will say silver's the worst medal to get, well, they're so different in terms of, how your ones were world championships and, gold medals that were, very different to each other as well. So, I think that reflection as well in terms of, keeping the full story, not just the colour of the outcome, but actually the kind of the meaningfulness and kind of the service it pays to you going forward, I guess. And that, that's what I'm hearing in terms of the Beijing silver paid you back.
Yeah.
Just not necessarily in the way that you'd envisaged it was going to.
Yeah, and ultimately, the colour of that medal only mattered that much to the 4 of us in the boat, and it really did. But the rest of the world, my God, it keeps going on, and it keeps turning around, and you turn with it. So, you also get perspective beyond it as well about it. It's not, the strongest things I took away from Beijing, reflecting now, it wasn't the medal anyway. It was everything else that came with it, and I think we'd all say that to some extent, and it's a medal we're still very proud of as a group and as a crew, and the lessons and the stories that came with it are as powerful as any bit of metal will ever be.
Yeah, absolutely, and the 2 Olympics that followed after that as well were sort of definitely fueled in many ways by a lot of that as well. So it was a pleasure to see that as well. So great getting your thoughts on that as well, and kind of. I'm mindful of time and mindful of your time. I'm sure there's some important UK sport decisions that need making somewhere down the line, so I don't want to keep you for too long. So, having had your chance to have a go at this, if I knew then what I know now, who would you like to pass the baton on to? And any thoughts as to why you think they're going to be great to pass their story on and reflections?
There's loads of people I'd like to pass it on to. I think everyone should do this. Everyone at home can do this as well. Just thinking about this. The person I'm going to pass it on to is the person, because I don't have a clue what they're actually going to go with.
Right, okay.
And that's partly why I'm going to give it to them. And we've had many conversations over many years. And I'm a little bit intrigued to see where she's going to go with it. And that person is Claire Balding.
Fantastic. Excellent. That will be fascinating. Such a brilliant career that Claire's had, turns her hand to many different things as well that we see publicly, but also, loads of other stuff. So I am sitting not very far away, probably about my back garden neighbour previously, recorded a audio with Claire a little while ago, walking up the hill from where I am as well. And recounting the beauty of the Cotswold countryside. And I was gutted that I didn't get to bump into Claire that day. So I'm delighted, Katherine, that I'm actually at least going to get to meet her virtually. So that's going to be great. So thank you very much for that baton handover.
Right.
Really interested to see where Claire goes. So fantastic. Very much looking forward to that. If folks, you've got comments, we're going to post this on the Performance Room. It will carry on being on the YouTube channel for a while as well. But we are off and running. with the If I Knew Then What I Know Now relay. Thank you very much for a brilliant first leg, Katherine. We'll see how many legs we go for and who may be the person who brings us to a glorious sprint finish at some point down the line as well. So been fantastic. Always a pleasure. Enjoy the rest of your Friday. Have a great weekend and stay safe. And thank you everyone for tuning in. Absolutely fantastic. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Chris.
We'll see you. Take care.